You are an Iron Man!
Welcome to episode 32, and today I am joined by Ian Moffat. Ian, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast. You're very welcome.
Thanks very much for inviting me on. Much appreciated, and been looking forward to it. A little bit nervous, but been looking forward to it.
Nothing to be nervous about at all. Nothing at all. Firstly, I suppose I want to say congratulations because you hit a massive, massive personal goal this year whenever you completed Ironman Barcelona.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. One that took a lot of. It really has took blood, sweat, and tears. That the cliche is very true. It takes everything to get there, especially in the time frame we did it. You know, I only did my first triathlon in April. I did 2 sprints, 2 Olympics, a half, and then the full in October. So it's been a pretty intense year, and I know Oliver Harkin, prime coach, and my coach has definitely suffered for trying to get us to where we've got to. But no, it's been a really good year in so many ways as a personal journey, growth, development, in personal improvement, personal happiness, and it's really kind of closed off some challenges in life that I probably wasn't sure I would ever overcome. But this journey is allowing me all the time to improve and kind of close some of those things off in life.
That's fantastic. It sounds like it's been a whirlwind of a year for you. I suppose something somewhere along the line has lit a bit of a fire under your ass, and it has really got you to a place where this year you've decided to put some things right. And what a year! What an absolute phenomenal year. To think you only did a sprint in April and you polished off the end of the year with a 140.6 is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, the year started quite badly. We went to Port Leash. We did the triathlon down there, the sprint. It was a pool swim. And swimming, anybody that knows me would tell you that swimming of all the 3 disciplines would be my strongest at the moment. I'm working on the cycling and we're getting there, and the running's taking a bit more time, but we keep persevering. But the swimming is, I would be over 100 meters. I would probably average a 145 pool swimmer, so handy enough. And I was in my lane and I got in the water with my tri-suit on, and something just didn't feel right whenever I submerged into the water, and I was struggling. I was kind of gasping for breath, and then I thought I was going to have a panic attack, and I don't know what happened, but I come out of the pool literally, that certainly last in my lane and very sort of far down on the order, where definitely not where I thought I would be. Got through the cycle, and the run was hard, but the run's always hard. But I didn't realise how chesty I was. And it was only that night I had to go to the out of hours doctor, and it turns out I had bronchiolitis.
Oh,
So I'd done the race, and I was definitely more handicapped than I would have been in terms of my physical fitness that day.
uh-huh.
But it was a great little event. The club were fantastic, very encouraging, and there was a good crowd. It was a cold enough day now, and a bit of rain, and it was a different doing the pool swim. So it was a really kind of good learning curve. I was briefly a member of Nace Triathlon Club because I was working and living in the Kildare area, and the chairman of the club is a chap called Barry Moran, and I don't know if you know Barry, but he's an absolutely fantastic human being, very encouraging, very supportive, years of experience, so he passes that on. So he kind of, any nerves and stuff I had, he just sort of gave me a little chat in the morning before the race, and I've kept in touch with Barry. I'm not a member of the club, and I don't live in the Republic anymore, but he is very, very much somebody that helped light that fire you're talking about, certainly from start. And obviously I had to get there, but he was a massive encouragement. There was a couple of other lads in the club, Kieran Keane, Dyer Power, who I got pally with swimming, and they also were very encouraging. So it was like a nice start to the year.
Cool. I've actually met Dara at the Tri Limits 70.3 earlier on in the year, so a
Yeah.
good guy. You'll find that we're all kind of supportive. It's a great community to be involved in, you know, the triathlon community, and we're always out championing each other and cheering each other on.
I found one of the most amazing things with it all, but I'm sure we'll talk about it when we talk about Barcelona specifically, but even on a local level, I'm obviously I'm on social media, I'm quite active, and I'm trying to share what I'm doing to encourage others. You know, I firmly believe if I can, anyone can. That's really my attitude with it. And no matter what life has thrown at you, loss, grief, obesity, addiction, you know, trauma, you know, just the hardships of relationship breakdowns, you know, all the things that we all as people go through, you know, I think no matter how tough it gets, life can actually get better with doing something incredibly positive like triathlon, and the support from the sidelines is the real thing that drives you on. I'd have to say, of all the events I did this year, so I did Port I did Crooked Lake, which was fantastic. Oliver's, like, you know, it's like a home race for Oliver, and we had real good crack. There's a bit of a funny story. I had some GI issues that day. I had to dive into a farmer's field, which me and Oliver found hysterical after the race. But then I did Dublin. I did try limits the 70.3, which was tough. I struggled with my running, some shin issues all year, but it's getting better. And that was an okay event. But I went to Dublin City Triathlon,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what's the club? Is it Piranha that do are
Yeah,
they the club
Piranha,
that
yeah.
do? And honestly, it was my favourite event of the year. It was absolutely fantastic. And I think obviously jumping in the water, there was big crowds. The sun was out. You got out of the water, there was big crowds. The bike, there was so much encouragement, whether you were along the bottom road, going up into Phoenix Park, descending down, which was a bit of crack, something, you know, we probably wouldn't do too much of locally. And it was just good. And then on the run, the streets were lined, kind of the roadway was lined, and I just found it a really, really great event. And then sure that there was free ice cream after it, so that made it all better.
Bonus. It's always tastes much sweeter when there's ice cream involved.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's what got me over the line. I'm certain of it. So it was a great event to do, and I actually voted for it for event of the year. The club were fantastic. I had to travel down country late on the Friday night. There'd been an issue on one of the jobs, and I went to the club early to try and get registered, and they said the system actually doesn't go live till I think it's 4 o'clock, and it was maybe 3:30. But they were like, "We'll get you first in. We'll make sure you're out the door." And they couldn't have helped enough. And then on the morning, from the car park attendants to the people setting up the transitions, the start line areas, they were just all really, really encouraging and incredible, and high five, and you're on the run to do. It was my favourite event of the year. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Class. Ian, you've already said there that you're very active on social media, and most people would know you and follow your story on social media. And you're on Instagram under the name of One Bloke's Journey.
Yeah.
So I suppose with regards to the journey, let's go back in time, if you will,
Yeah.
and we'll have a wee chat about that journey and kind of how the journey got you from where you were to where you are today.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll finish off talking about where the journey might bring us in the future. So I guess we can start anywhere on the journey, but one of the places I like to talk about is the school days. For example, it's always a good place to start, a solid enough environment for devilment, badness, and carry on that we all get up to. But would you have been the sporty type at school? Would you have been the guy getting stuck in on the football pitch, or were you quiet, or what way was it for you back then?
Well, I don't ever think any of my teachers would have quite described me as quiet. That's probably something to clear up. But yeah, I was always involved in sport. So I was born in the UK, and then we moved over to the Isle of Man when we were kids. I think I was 6. My dad had family there, and we went there. Me, my dad, my mum, and then my two brothers, Mark and Trevor. And we grew up in a council house, and my dad worked. My dad's a plumber by trade. My mum would work in the local supermarket. And we went to a primary school called Oncombe Primary School. My best friend growing up was a kid called Daniel Corlett. Daniel's Daniel's life story is very interesting. Sadly, he's no longer with us. But me and Daniel we were inseparable. We were two peas in the pod. If we weren't in the forest climbing trees and falling out of them, kicking a ball, we were climbing on people's garage roofs and out there the allotment in the fields. We sold all our computer games one summer and bought a C90 to ride around the field, which our parents went absolutely spare about. We were always up to kind of entertaining and amusing ourselves. We didn't need too much company to enjoy certainly the summer holidays. But at school I would have took part in the athletics. I would have played in football at Oncombe Primary School, and then Daniel went to a different high school to me. He went to St Ninians and I went to a high school called Ballacameen. Now Ballacameen, obviously when you're sort of maybe in the running team or the athletic squad at say Oncombe Primary School, or the football team at Oncombe Primary School, and then you go to Ballacameen High School, obviously the talent pool is certainly bigger. But I was always in and around the two football teams, the A and the B, primarily the B football team. But I did take part in inter-athletics. So for our form class, we had some really talented people in our school, in our form class particularly. There was good fast runners, Nicholas Bowden, Gareth Jones, Richard Easthope, all talented lads, and no other than the most famous sprint cyclist in the world, Mark Cavendish.
Really? Yeah.
So there was five of us competing for a space on the relay team. And one of them is now the greatest sprint cyclist in the world, probably one of the greatest cyclists in the world, not just sprinter. He's a fantastic talent. We'd have been relatively friendly in school, and we'd have spent time together outside of school. And he was a great kid to be around. He was very positive and sure of what he wanted to do in life. So that was we went. I'm thinking of school. There's been a couple of athletes. There's been a couple of footballers. I hung around a lot with the age group above me. There's a lad I was friends with most of my sort of young adult life, Johnny Myers, and we would still speak. And he played professional football. Somebody I absolutely idolised growing up is a lad called Chris Bass, who had trials pretty much everywhere and played a bit of semi-pro and pro, and he just the ultimate athlete and looked after himself in every way he could. So there was good people to kind of look towards, but I wasn't ever going to be that footballer. Johnny, for argument's sake, he was a brilliant footballer, rugby player, cricketer, snooker player, pool player, darts player, just anything he turned his hand to, he was fantastic at. That wasn't particularly me. I enjoyed football. I went to like the local boxing gym for a while. I rode motocross. I rode short circuits, motorbikes. That was more my thing. Motorbikes growing up, I was obsessed with them. The Isle of Man TT, coming over here to the Northwest 200 from I was a young age, spending time down in Skerries. I had my 16th birthday in Skerries watching a motorbike race. It's actually always on my birthday weekend. It was always on the July weekend of my birthday. So that was more sort of growing up. Motorbikes was my thing. I was obsessed with them. So that was my sort of first experience of losing somebody. There was a garage by us that friends of my dad's, and there was a chap called Robert Holden and John Hepburn, two guys from New Zealand, and Robert and John would have been like heroes to me. And I was 9, nearly 10 years old when Robert was killed in the Isle of Man TT. Morning practice, he didn't come back, and that was kind of the first time I'd ever experienced losing anybody that and I can say it, absolutely idolised the man. He was, other than probably my father, I haven't ever looked at somebody as much as I'd looked at Robert as a kid. He was my first kind of love of sport. People had nowadays it would be Steven Gerrard, David Beckham. There's all these, but for me growing up, it was Robert. He was the first sports star that I really had an affinity to. And motorbike racing is a relatively low. It's not one of the high end sports in terms of viewing figures, but to me, he was absolutely everything. He won everywhere that I watched, and he rode Ducatis, which were my favourite bike. And he didn't have the cool RI helmet. He had Nolan, which were a bit unique. He was just a bit different, and he was the first sports person I really truly kind of had an affinity with. And people ask questions, would you ever want to go anywhere on holiday? And I'd always want to go to New Zealand because that's where he was from. So that was my first real experience of my first love of sport, was definitely always motorbikes. But I always played, and I did right up until my 20s, and I ruptured the ligament in my right knee. And that was probably the start of things changing in my life, going from being able to training football twice a week and playing football on a Saturday. And then I would box in the week, or I'd be on a motocross bike or a push. But, you'd always be at something. You were very idle. And you maybe drank one night a week. You'd maybe go out on a Saturday night after football with the football team. And then it sort of changed when I was injured. I did the recovery well. I stuck to everything I was told, and it failed again quite quickly after I'd come back. And then that's when weight started to go on, and I wasn't playing sports, and I was drinking more than I was training. And that was kind of probably the start of my life, going from being a more sporty person to not. Everyone goes through it. They get to a certain age, I suppose, and you either stick to what you're doing, or you make that switch over.
So would that have been roughly around the time, sort of coming into your teenage years, that you were kind of where you got that injury then, or were
No,
you young adult?
I was actually through them. So I'd have been 19, 20 when it first happened.
Hmm.
And then I come back and I did the full recovery for probably 11, 12 months. And then maybe 6 weeks into it coming back, it went again, and it dislocated again. My knee dislocated, and when it dislocated, it ruptured the ligament in my knee.
And then did that require like a surgery or an
Yeah,
operation
so
then, and then there was subsequent recovery then after that, or?
I've probably I don't know, 7 or 8 inch scar on me leg. The first time they went in keyhole to do it, it was quite unevasive. Whereas the second time they had to go in and they cut me, which has always been quite tender and a bit of a weak point. If you watch me run on a treadmill, you can see that my ankle sort of overpronates, and it comes from maybe that side of my inside of my right leg not being as strong. So that was kind of when that happened. I was probably at that point lost, because I wasn't really doing anything. I couldn't ride a motocross bike. I got hurt quite badly racing the motorbikes when I was 16. Done both my ankles, collarbone, split my shoulder blade in two. I was really, really beaten up.
Hmm.
So I kind of stopped the ride, and I wasn't where I used to be at in terms of doing that. I didn't have the confidence. So I was trying to just play sort of what we would class as normal sport. And then obviously the ligament injury was probably the worst injury I've had. It was actually, when you look back, it's really changed the course of my life.
It sounds absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you felt then whenever that injury. So, I mean, it's bad enough that you get the injury once, and I guess you can kind of get through a rehab or a recovery phase because you have an understanding that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. So
Yeah.
you can kind of put up with something for a certain period of time, as long as you know that there's going to be a closure, there's going to be a point where we can regroup and we can move forward. You had come
Yeah.
through that with the first surgery, but then bang, you're devastated again. And what's going through your mind then during this early days after this, the second more
Well,
invasive surgery?
the second surgery took a lot more out of me, and I was definitely not as regimental in the recovery, because I probably had a limited amount of faith that it was going to work. And I'd gone the first time, there was a chap called Steve Bollen at the Yorkshire Clinic, and he did a lot of footballers, a lot of professional rugby players, and I thought, like, this guy was the bee's knees. I remember meeting him at the hospital, and his car, he had a green, a British Racing Green Porsche Boxster, and his number plate was 999 ACL. That was his number plate on the car, and I'll never forget it. And I'd lost a lot of faith in that, like, well, this isn't really going to work. And then I'd already crept weight on because I wasn't active, but I hadn't really changed my diet. Whereas I always got away with kind of eating relatively what I wanted, because I was training 4 or 5 times a week. Some of those sessions, the two football training sessions would have been an hour to an hour and a half. The football match was always an hour and a half for the warm up. You were pretty active, and we played at a decent enough level in amateur football. Played for a couple of clubs, but it was, it was competitive, and you kind of put your all into it. And there were some really good, talented lads, and it was enjoyable as well. You know, you had the social element, but when the football or the sporting element went, the social element stayed. And that's obviously then when you're drinking on a Friday night because you're not playing football on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then you drink on a Saturday, and sure, Sunday it's Super Sunday. There's a football match to watch on the TV, or before you know it, you're in that cycle of going out Friday to Sunday. Monday you die in work. Tuesday you start to recover. Wednesday you feel normal. You maybe start it again on Friday. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
just get into that life cycle. So that's probably where it changed. And I definitely, you know, to answer your question, definitely wasn't as thorough the second time round, but I didn't really have a whole pile of intention of playing football again. I've managed to play a little bit of five-a-side since, and the occasional time if I catch a ball on the end of my right toe, my big toe and my right foot, and my foot opens, I can feel the joint. It's loose, so it just was never going to be something that um I was going to go back into in a big way. I think now, even running, I'm cautious, but I'm learning that actually my body's capable of far more than I've realised. Certainly with the triathlon, you know, and as long as I'm not pivoting too much and that twisting motion on your toes and spinning your feet, I'm pretty good. So running's a challenge because of my physical size, but it's actually becoming really enjoyable, and I'm definitely getting more and more addicted to the running side of it. From I've come home from Barcelona, really, we've seen quite a big improvement. I've gone straight back to training, so we're confident that what I'm doing isn't really an issue for my knee, and the best thing I'm doing is the training and dieting to take the weight and the pressure off.
Good stuff. I suppose back then though it was a case of drowning your sorrows, for want of a better term, in those early days. Just you said that you were putting on a bit of weight, and you put on a fair bit of weight. It's fair to say, Ian, didn't you? Like back then.
Yeah, so I went from probably being the guy that was 13 to 14 and a half stone playing football to quite quickly being that 18, 19 stone guy. That didn't take an awfully long time. And there was a couple of fad diets and, you know, attempts to turn it around, but they didn't work. And then your self-confidence is low. Clothes you used to wear don't fit. And, you know, before you know it, and you don't know at the time that you're suffering from an anxiety or a depression, but your mood has completely changed, and you're not in a particularly good place. And certainly socially, you know, you go from wearing, say, nice or comfier clothes to buying stuff that fit. It's a very different kind of shopping experience.
Mm.
You know, you're going into places and buying tops that are 2 and 3XL when you've always been a large or an extra large. And it's actually, you don't realise, whilst it's a bit like uncomfortable at the time to put yourself in that position, you don't realise the sort of detrimental damage it can do to your confidence in all walks of life then. So it's only now that I can look back, and I definitely have a clarity on what things mean and how they affect us, that I understand the things that I've gone through much better. And that's probably why I'm able to deal with them now and kind of control them to a degree.
I suppose if someone had have said to you or even suggested it to you whenever you were tipping the scales at 18 or 19 stone that someday in the future you'd complete an Ironman triathlon, you would have had some look at them.
Yeah, there was nothing in me that led me to believe I was going to amount to much sportingly, and then the deeper issues in life weren't really at their peak yet, where I would have essentially not feel like I would amount to anything in life anyway, let alone sportingly. You know, it got worse. My life turned upside down for a few reasons, of which I'm part of all of them. You know, and it was only it was only at the it's only very recently have I become a believer that I can achieve again. And what success looks like for me isn't what success looks like for you or for Brian Fraser, who helps me with my strength and conditioning coach, and Oliver Harkin. You know, everyone's version of success and achievement is different, and it's the best lesson I learned in triathlon. I was looking at people thinking, look at them, they don't know what it's like, you know, poor me, you know, that kind of self-wallowing, self-pitying.
Yep.
And it was only when I got to grips, What I have learned is the guy that finishes first and the guy at the back, or the woman at the back and the woman at the front, they're at their maximum. They're very rarely is the person that's at the top coming home and hasn't broke a sweat and it's all casual. Everyone's doing their best. They're performing at their highest level. And I'm performing at my highest level. Now, my highest level at Ironman Barcelona was 14 hours and 9 minutes. Another day, that'll be 11 hours. That'll be, it can be 11 hours. If I'm willing to do the work, if I'm willing to stay committed to the process of improving and training and losing weight and all the things, which I am, then my times will improve. But I think if you come into this with the attitude that, they don't know what it's like, or that resentment, or kind of being bitter even, then you're on a hiding to nothing, because you'll never be happy with your own performance. Comparison is the thief of joy. That's the saying. And I learned very quickly that I am bettering myself, even though some of my events have been challenging. I am bettering myself at every stage of this journey, and that's all I can do. If I'm bettering myself, and there are days we'll stall, we'll stagnate, we won't progress, and that's okay. There'll be reason and understanding. You may have a mechanical, you may have a niggle or an injury, or conditions just might be different. It could be a wet course as opposed to a dry course on the bike, and you just might not be at it. There are loads of things, but not comparing yourself, but looking at them for an inspiration, looking at them for a positivity. What are they doing? What can I learn from them? That's how I look at them now. People like Rob Moore and people like Kieran Keane. There's Rob Dwyer is a lad I kind of got chatted to a little bit this year, and he's kind of at the top of his game. He's doing really well, and whilst I don't think I'll be him, I can certainly look at what he does and think, okay, is that something I could try? Or how does he go through transitions? Transitions are a bleeding nightmare. They're like the fourth sport of triathlon. So
Yeah.
learning to improve, and then so there's always something to pick up. And I think there's loads of incredibly strong men, and there's amazing women. Like, some of the women actually blow me away how strong they are, and the job they're doing, and it's just, the sport's littered with really talented people. And I've chosen to try and tap into that to develop me, as opposed to looking at them like, oh, boo-hoo, they don't know what it's like for me type thing, which is what a mindset at the start was probably a little bit more negative, because they didn't understand, but they do, because they're absolutely busting themselves to do their best.
That actually resonates with me a little, because I remember a number of years ago being on a local race, getting onto the bike, coming into the second lap of what was a sprint triathlon, and getting absolutely roasted by these machines going past me with their disc wheels and their black bikes that looked like something out of a Batman movie. And I actually felt demoralized. It was actually a really, really humbling moment, but it was devastating. But it was also the moment that I realized I can't compare myself to these people, because if I'm going to do that, I am never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And it was the realization that what you're after saying there, just to echo it, that you need to flick a switch, and you need to own yourself where you're at in your journey at that point. And then you ask yourself the questions, you reflect on it, you ask yourself the questions, and you figure out, okay, so moving forward, it's not helpful for me to look at what everybody else is doing. I need to get my own ship in order here and see how far we can sail, or how fast we can sail moving into the future. And now when I'm on the bike and I'm getting annihilated by the machines, I'm in awe of them. I feel lucky to be able to be on the road with these guys zooming past me, and I'd just be absolutely amazed.
That's the biggest thing. I think you've just hit the nail on the head. You can either look at this as tomorrow, which I did. It happened to me early doors, especially on the run. So my race would be a sliding scale. I'd be there or thereabouts in the swim. I'd do I was competitive in the swim. I then would be okay on the bike. I'd be a mid-pack-ish on the bike, probably, depending on the distance. and the elevation normally, which can differ for me. And then the run, I would just be out the back door. And I was kind of really, really beating myself up over this. But then I thought, I've done 2 sprints, I've got better at each sprint. I've done 2 Olympics, I've got better at each Olympic. I've done my first half and I've completed an Ironman. And I also, in between that, I did a long training day. Oliver Harkin likes to do a metric Ironman as part of your training. So instead of the miles, you do it in kilometers. So you do the swim, you do the bike, you do 112 kilometers as opposed to 112 miles, and then you do 26 kilometers. Now, when I did the run, I hadn't run more than an hour on a treadmill because of the difficulties I was having with my shins. The day we chose to do it, I kind of got let down at short notice for somebody that was doing it with me. Something had come up and they weren't able to do it. But then I'd been training and had joined Mako Dry Club because I was working in the Donna Bay area. And I knew some great people down there, Andrea Campbell, Deirdre Degan, and they welcomed me in, Anita, David, Donald. I can't speak highly enough of the Dara. The whole club have just been incredibly enthusiastic and encouraging. And I'd put a message in saying I was having to do the training day. Would anyone like to join me? So I got down there and I did the swim on myself, but it was a perfect day for swim. It was really lovely. But it turned into the hottest day of the year. So then we were out on the bike, and David, Anita, Deirdre, and a few, Deirdre, sorry, had done the first lap with me on the bike. Then the car was parked with all the refueling and nutrition. So we did that, did the second lap on the bike. And then I was out running. I was doing the run, and I started the run on my own. And Anita came and joined me, and Ryan from Mako, and they've been like the encouragement I've had from them. They've never stopped telling me how well I'm doing. They've never stopped encouraging me to keep going. Yes, it's hard, but it'll get easier. And I just found they showed me, and I'll say they showed me a love that I probably am not overly used to experiencing. And I definitely, because of experiences in life, I've been guarded in who I would allow in that way. But they have been nothing but all they've done is champion me in any way they can, and they did the day with me, and that was the realization then. And me and Oliver had a conversation in the week. He said, don't worry about doing the 26.2 kilometer run, just do 15k, which is kind of what I've been doing. You haven't run that far. And he said, I just don't think you can do it. It's too much. And he was being brutally honest, which is what you need from your coach. If you're going to have one, you need to be able to accept positive criticism or positive, whichever way you want to word it, structured criticism, and listen, because he has got your best interest, or she has got your best interest at heart. But that day when I felt like he doubted me, that I had the ability to do it, because that's how my mind works. Tell me I can't and watch me do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and did it, and then obviously the stats all uploaded. I texted him saying day completed, long training day completed. And he was like, when did you decide to do the 26.2 kilometers? Because we'd said, not to, I said, I decided the day you told me that you didn't think I could do it. And that very much speaks to my mindset. I will do it. And that can be detrimental because you have to listen to your body. You have to listen to your coach. You have to kind of not put yourself at risk. But I find that I am able, but my body's maybe not conditioned to doing these things. So we've tried to condition me the best we can this year to do quite big things. Whereas if I'd have done this over whatever weight I was, if I'd done it over a year or 2 years, 18 months, I'd have still been the same size, but I'd have been much more conditioned to running those distances. Whereas we've obviously crammed it in. But the sort of the point is that I've had good people really, really encourage me. I've had Julia Mazzotti, who is Mako's Brazilian. She really was the first person. I've kind of thrown money at this, which is a lesson I'm learning, that's not always the best thing to do. And I went and got a nutritionist in the Nace area, and anything I knew about healthy eating, and I'd lost weight before I'd got to this point. And anything I'd known, she kind of dismissed and poo-pooed and said, that's not right, that's not right. You know, I wasn't allowed to have boiled eggs. I wasn't allowed to have pink lady apples because they were too sweet. It was just, it kind of just really confused me then. And I backed away off it, and I was a bit like down in the doldrums, and I was like kicking myself, what do I do? And when I joined Mako and found out what Julia did, I'd asked a few questions, and some people had spoke really well of it. And she's actually, her and Danilo, her partner, and their dog Kuba have become massive friends. And like, she has championed me as much as anybody. Um, they've both encouraged me. They've supported me. They've, you know, when I've been down there working, we've gone on training rides together. They've swims. They've just really good people, and that's the big thing I've took from this year. There are fantastic people in the sport who really wanted you to do your best. Don't get me wrong, there are naysayers as well. I won't deny it. There are those that follow, and social media is a bad place for it. There is plenty of people that follow you that want to see you fail, that don't want to see you be successful. And that's okay, because that says more about them and their lives than it does about me and my life. Whereas in the past, that would have been a massive anxiety or a flare up for me. So I kind of allow people to follow, comment, whatever they want to say or do, personally or publicly or privately. That's their business. I'm doing me, and my goal is to help others. That's what I'm here to try and achieve.
Good stuff, Ian. You're clearly doing very well, and anybody that would follow your social media would be able to see. I mean, you do put it all out there. You know, we see you running, biking, swimming. We see you in the gym. We see all your meal prep. We're seeing someone who has dedication. You've got the discipline. You're really committed. We have seen you complete an Ironman this year. I suppose this short part of your journey is very, very positive. And you did mention something there, just which I just want to go back on, if you don't mind. But you said where you weren't used to people saying or feeling love, and was that something or an indicator of maybe times in the past whenever you didn't feel that you were capable of doing anything, or you just maybe lacked motivation? Was it
Yeah,
something that
so
had kind of evaded you that you're obviously now doing very well?
I went through, like, you know, we've all been on a journey in life. We're all on a path, and I kind of was relatively steady, and I met the mother of my twins when I was 20, and kind of I'd been, you know, I was out drinking and partying, you know, after the injuries and stuff, and I wasn't living a particularly good life, but equally I wasn't sort of at my worst or totally destructive, but I wasn't doing anything good. I was just a weekend party, a weekend warrior, weekend millionaire, you know.
Yeah.
And then you'd be kind of fed up, then depressed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and sure Friday comes round, and it's like you get the brown envelope after work on a Friday, and you get cracking again. So I was. I started bricklaying in college, and then I got injured racing motorbikes. And then when I come back, I went into plastering, and I did that for years. And I met Vicky, the mother of my twins. She, you know, very lucky. We were together for 13 years. We have a great relationship. We get on great, but we separated. We agreed that I was working away a lot and living away, and we agreed that we drifted apart. It was quite natural, and it's sad, but we're very good friends. She's an amazing mother to the twins, and I then based myself back in Liverpool, and that was probably the worst mistake I'd made, because whilst I thought that was what I wanted out of life, I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to be single. I wasn't happy living in the Isle of Man anymore, and I was kind of done with the place. I had business ties there that went horribly wrong. I'd had an event company, a camping and glamping business that provided camping a glamping event, and we had equipment to festivals. We did the Isle of Man TT, we did European Golf, European Tour event, the Open. And I brought somebody into the business, and it went horribly wrong. And basically, whilst I was in Liverpool having my crisis in life and struggling, I in March 2018, I tried to take my own life. and that was as a result of drink and drug abuse addiction. I ended up in an amazing facility called James's Place, and they gave me the support, a suicidal crisis support that I needed at that time to make it through the next couple of months. And at that point, my business had failed. There was an issue with bookings that had been made and that weren't being honoured by my ex partner, who had taken all the equipment and all of the business and carried it on. I was left to face the legal ramifications of that, and very nearly went to jail. I had to financially, and I didn't have to, but I did financially settle all the people back that had lost. And then I was kind of done with the island, and I was done with Liverpool. It wasn't the right place for me to be living. And I moved through the help of a family in Randallstown in Northern Ireland. I came over here. The McManus family, who showed me nothing but kind of concern because of the state I was in, and offered me the opportunity of somewhere to stay, a bit of work, doing something that I'd never done before. I completely retrained. I became a health and safety manager, and that wasn't what I was doing at the start. But they took me in, and I come over, and I probably, what I'd done, I'd escaped Liverpool, but I hadn't really dealt with the things that I'd gone through, and the troubles that I was having. But then I wasn't out partying every weekend and drinking, so it kind of wasn't at its worst because I wasn't pouring petrol on the fire anymore. But I still hadn't really dealt with too much.
Yeah.
And then it came. We get to October 2020. My sister Stacey suddenly died from a very rare lung condition. Now, Stacey, we call her our sister. Stacey was biologically my dad's niece, my cousin, but her mum passed away, and my dad raised Stacey. It was all boys. My dad had two boys. Well, there was me and my two brothers, and then my dad met my stepmom, and she had two boys. There was always boys in our house, and Stacey was kind of the daughter that my dad didn't have. And she lived with my dad and my stepmother, and she very tragically died suddenly on the 17th of October 2020. I'd met somebody in lockdown, and it was a very sort of for lockdown. It was obviously very casual because you couldn't really do anything or go anywhere. We lived close enough together, and we unplanned, but we'd felt pregnant quite quickly, very early on. And the truth be told, we didn't really know each other, and then we tried to make a relationship work, and we're having this beautiful daughter. But it was kind of a gift, despite taking all the precautions that you can take. We got pregnant, and we have a beautiful daughter called Poppy. She's absolutely incredible. She's 3 years old, but she was actually born on my sister's anniversary.
Right.
So Stacey passed away on the 17th of October 2020. And Poppy was born on the 17th of October 2021. So, like, for me, that was the first real sign that, there's something greater going on in life than chance. There is something bigger happening. And it was at that point I'd not really dealt with anything, as I alluded to before, and I was like, I'm gonna have to sort this out. I was obese, but clinically obese. I was nearly 28 stone.
28.
28 stone, yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, I've got to do something here. So that was the September before Poppy was due. Poppy was actually due in the start of October, but she held on, and obviously we know why she held on, because she had to be special and come on Stacey's anniversary, didn't she? But
Yeah.
and she's definitely a princess, so that would definitely be her form. So we know it was meant to be, and We have a beautiful daughter. We have a great relationship, which is good, and me and her mum get on, which is kind of all you can ask for. Um, but I had to do something. I was lost and I couldn't run. I was far too big to run. And then I went and bought a bike in Halfords. So I bought a mountain bike in Halfords. So it was like, I don't know, 400 quid. And but the second day I jumped off a curb. Like literally was riding along a pavement and hopped off a curb. I was going to the South Lakes in Craigavon to ride around the lakes.
Hmm.
I buckled the back wheel. I was that big. The back wheel buckled and I was like, it was like completely demoralising. I actually was close to tears at the side of the road, just like, this is bad. Like, this has got way, way worse than I could have ever imagined. So went home, had a bit of a comfort ache, as you do when you're struggling to deal with anything.
Yeah.
And the Sunday come up, and I took myself off to South Lakes Leisure Centre in Craigavon and got in the pool. I thought, I've always been able to swim, as in, like, not, I've never competed swimming. I wasn't a child star or anything, but I could swim in the sea, so I can swim in a pool. I think I swam about 300 meters in 40 minutes, and I was busted. I was like, oh my, like, what has happened? I was having that, like, real moment of, like, what's gone on here in life? How have I got to this point? How is it this bad? I used to play football, I'd box, I'd race motorbikes. You know, how have I got to here? And there was a lady walking up and down coaching these people in the lanes next to me. And I just happened to say, excuse me, do you do one-on-one swimming lessons? Because I need to learn how to swim. And she said, we don't, but you can join the club and start in lane one. And that's what I did. And within 4 months, I'd gone from lane one to the top lanes. I was flying. This is now October 21. And in the March, I'd competed in galas, the Sleeve Bay Masters, and I'd won my heats.
Brilliant.
And then on the 28th of April, sorry, the 28th of May, 22, and I know the date because Liverpool played Real Madrid in the Champions League final and got beat. That's why the date sticks in my head. I completed the Battle of Carlingford. So I
Very good.
swam from, which is a race. I did it in skins. So just me and a pair of togs and my goggles. You swim from Omeath to Carlingford in just under 2 hours 15. I think it's 2:12. Did really well, and that was kind of how I built myself up. And then from that May to the October, I did nothing again. I went back into that from the end of May to October. I'd done nothing, and I was like, I'm lost here. I'm going to have to do something. So I entered Ironman Barcelona in October 23 for October 23, but then got injured very early on, my ligaments in my knee again.
Right.
So it just fell by the wayside. Didn't happen. October 23 come round. I was putting weight back on. I'd been losing weight. I'd lost like 7 stone 6 quite quickly, like in a dramatic. But pretty much by the time I was doing that swim, in the May, and then I put a couple of stone back on, and it was just back to that yo-yoing and being lost. And then my daughter Lily has an autoimmune disease, a very rare condition called Sjogren's syndrome, and we'd spent most of 2023 in Alder Hey Children's Hospital with her.
Right.
So I was travelling back and forth, working away in Liverpool, and then coming home to see Poppy when I could. But we largely were in and out of the hospital for a year. Her mum, how her mum managed with it and survived with Charlie, our other twin son. Like her mum did an amazing job, and that was kind of 2023 done. But it got to like February, March, and I contacted Oliver. So when I was struggling and kind of at my worst, and I was doing the swimming, and obviously we'd lost Stacey, Oliver had reached out to me and invited me to a social cycle, which is done by, it's Park Tri Community, Tri Talking Sport, and Racing Without Borders. And it's on a Monday night. We've just done it 7:05. We've just had the social spin, and it's a bit of a leisurely ride, and then there's a few sprints in it, and There's a few people, I know that do it. Matthew McDowell, who's become a friend that I met on Oliver's training camp, and he's normally up there with the sprints. Ava White joined us tonight from Dublin. She's part of the tri club I was talking about. She's just competed in Marbella. There's obviously Oliver, Karen Lewis, Elaine. There's really good group of people that just, some of them chat on this app, some of them chat on WhatsApp, some of them are chatting on the Zwift.
Mm-hmm.
And it just becomes something to do. And he did that for me when he didn't know me. There was no approach from him to coach me. He wasn't trying to sign another client. He just seen somebody that was lost really, and he reached out. And I would go as far to say I'm very fond of Oliver, and I rave about him and speak highly. And he has his work cut out with me. There's no doubt about it. But Oliver is one of the people that changed the course of my life, and without him, I dread to think where I could be. He doesn't really understand probably the impact he's had on me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very blessed and grateful for what he's for the kindness he showed me first of all, and then also the work he's done with me, and he has put up with me at my absolute worst when I'm filled with anxiety, when I'm doubting, because I'm not some new guy that isn't anxious or doesn't have worries or concern. I still have them, but I can manage them better. But there are days, as you'll know, that it does become a bit much, and you worry and you doubt and you question. And he's been really good at keeping me focused, helping me just believe a bit more and know that actually, yeah, you've made mistakes, you've got things wrong in life. We all have. We've done things, or we've been through challenges, but that doesn't define you. And we've coined a phrase really, and I put it on a post. I am not going to live a life of regret. So that's kind of why I've come into this route. And his kindness back then is what led me to Oliver this time. So I went to him and I said, look, this is what I want to do, and I want to do Barcelona. And I think he just said, right then, that's what we're doing, because he knew it wasn't me asking him. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
It was more, how do we do it? So he's given me the how, and he did roadmap it really well. And he bared with all my knees, my ankles, sorry, my shins, my niggles, my issues that I'd had with the running, and he built me so slow on the running. I think until 7 or 8 weeks out, I hadn't ran more than 90 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and that was doing 9 and 1 or 14 and 1. It was always interval type runs. It was never a run. And he just really, really encouraged, and we have a good working relationship. We have a good social relationship. He's actually texting me now, so I don't know what he's sent me. It'll be something about the spin tonight. And he just was able to help me believe, as have some other fantastic people. We went on the training camp in New York, so we started working together, I think, in the March, and then at the end of April, start of May was Oliver's training camp in Mallorca. So he invites me onto the camp. I'm completely having like imposter syndrome at this point. I'm like, there's no way. He's like, no, you'll be grand, you'll be grand, you'll be grand. You can swim, you can cycle a bit, we'll sort out the running. You can run on a treadmill in the gym at the hotel. So we went, and it was a baptism of fire. I'm not going to lie, but what I loved. There was some incredible people. Matthew McDowell, who I spent the weekend with up in Port Royal. I spent Saturday with him. He's a great guy, and we cycle together now. We keep in touch, and we're going back this year training. There's guys, Luke McMullen, who's from Bell Park. They had a big squad of people out there, and Luke's been one of the people that you watch and you admire. Like, I think he won his age group, or he placed very high up in his age group in Portugal. I think he's going to the World Championships next year. He wins locally at a lot of the sprints in the Olympics. Andy, another lad from Bell Park. There was a big group, and they're just really, really incredible. Like Andy was like an amazing swimmer. It was just an absolute pleasure to watch. And then you just meet the life stories of Valerie Collins, who went to the World Champs. She sadly had an accident at Nice and ended up in hospital. And then Anya Liston, she's just become like a very good motherly friend. She's absolutely had my back, and Anytime I'm quiet, she's, what's up with you? You know, she kind of has learned my ways, and she's been a very encouraging support. And obviously Oliver, the coaches, Kieran Campbell from Armagh, Paddy McLaughlin, who just completed in Kona, just like these great people with amazing stories. And it just, on the Saturday we were there, it was Iron. So Patrick, had done 2 weeks coaching, and then on the Saturday he did the Ironman, the 70.3 in Mallorca. He's
Hmm.
like, just incredible. And then flew home, and then 2 weeks later went away and did a full. Just these people, just you surround yourself with them. And there's a massive saying: if you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And it's so true. If you surround yourself with people that are doing their best, whatever level they're at, the level isn't the important factor. It's just people with positive encouragement, positive enthusiasm, that want to do better, that want to encourage, want to support. I like people now that are happy that you're doing well.
Yeah,
Years ago, I would have lived in circles where people only asked you how you were so they could tell you how they were.
that's
They
right.
were,
Yeah,
they,
waiting. They would ask you a question and then wait for you to finish whatever you're saying for them just to say what they. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So whereas I've managed to find a really good, and like, it's a big group of people that you can speak to or tap into for resource or just to chat, and they are happy that you're doing well. They're delighted that you've excelled at the thing you wanted to do. The messages I had from people at Barcelona, people that I hadn't maybe spoken to from the training camp, or people that I haven't really chatted to much at all, the messages I've received, there was families in England that were cheering me on in the run. I never met them.
Hmm.
There's a family, their son Jack did the Ironman, but they seen me on the run, and every time I come around this corner, Cheryl and her family, thank you, they were singing, "Let's go, Ian, let's go." And I was like, who are these people? I get home and I got a message about inspiration and amazing, well done. And there's there's a family down in Exeter that Will and Lou, she did the Ironman in Barcelona last year. He did it this year. We've met. I'm in London next week, and I'm going to see them in Exeter. They've invited me down to see them and enjoy the weekend with them. It just, like, you've met people that you'll be in touch with for life. When we were out there, Dyer obviously was out there with us, and we would swim together before the race in Kieran, and we met some girls. That Jodie and Molly, that they weren't necessarily overly confident in the water, so we took them in and they swam with us and they got more comfortable. We helped them a little bit, but then there'll be a time at another race or another point in life they'll help us with things, and that's probably the most incredible thing about all this is the help and encouragement that people want to give each other.
No, it's a lovely community to be involved in, and it's nice to hear you verbalizing that, because it's something that I guess a lot of people will be able to relate to. I know I'm certainly listening to you and relating to you, and I have my versions of the people that you're talking about in my
Yeah.
club that I look at and listen to and seek out and want to be like. And it really is such a close community. Now, I was speaking to a couple of my clubmates during the coffee break on our Sunday cycle, and one of the guys was asking me who have I got on next, and I was telling him that I was going to be, hopefully, if everything went to plan, that I would have you on the podcast. And this guy went, "Oh, I follow him on Instagram." And I was like, "Really?" And I went, "Yeah, he's a massive inspiration for me." So I thought I just wanted to make a point while I'm speaking with you, whilst you take so much inspiration from others around you, and similarly I do, that there are people who are following you who are totally inspired by what you're doing. I think that's just something nice that you need to hear.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And there's a family, there's a couple I met in Barcelona. We were in the same hotel, the next rooms, and they're a couple, and they're from Germany. Her name is Melanie Altenbeck. I think that's how you pronounce it. And her partner's name is Florian. And Melanie won her age group. I think she was second overall in the general standings, and she's going to, which will be Kona for the women next year.
Brilliant.
She's been to Kona before. She's a high level age group athlete. The most incredible people, and very much like Will and Lou, who had read my story. They'd seen my bib number, followed me on social media, and then read my posts and my stories. I'd posted quite a lengthy one before I went away, and they come up to me and said, absolute inspiration. And Melanie and Florian were the same. Now Florian, the best compliment I can give him is, me and Florian would be of similar build. Melanie is like this German machine athlete, and me and Florian aren't like athletes, and that's not a criticism. That's just how we look at each other in the physical sense. We are athletes, obviously, and Oliver always says you're one of my athletes, and it's an incredible thing to hear. But as you would look at somebody, a high performance athlete, we're not there yet, but we're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And Florian was like talking about people running. And him looking up to, I want to run like him. I'm Jack. And I was like, and I told him, I said, but I want to run like you. He runs a half marathon in 2:09. My best half marathon was 2:34 or something. Literally the weeks before I went to Barcelona, running around Newbridge House in Dublin with a pit stop in the car to rehydrate, because it was like summer months and it was hot, and I was doing that. That's the most I'd run, 9 and 1, 9 and 1, 9 and 1. I did just over 2.5 hours. That was the best I'd done. And he couldn't, he was taken aback that I was telling him that I'm looking up to him, thinking, I want to run like Florian. Whereas if I compare myself to Rob Dwyer, for argument's sake, in the male category, or Luke McMullen, or Andy, the guy I was talking about from Dublin, I think I'm on a hiding to nothing. I'm never going to be. Andy Grennan is Grehan, I think his name is, and he was like a child high performance swimmer for Ireland. He was fantastic. But if I compare myself to them, I'm only setting myself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we can look at just the person that's ahead of us each time, or the person that's a couple ahead of us, that running that 10 seconds per kilometre quicker, that's what I've learned. Be patient with it. It's a long journey. If hopefully we can spend a long time doing this sport, if we're good to ourselves, and it's not what can we achieve in a week. The weight loss, I'm back really focused on my diet, and it's going to take me a long time. I've set a goal before May of what I want to lose. It's high, because that's generally how I do things. I set myself high goals, and for years I wanted to do well at things, and I wanted to over please, and I wanted to over people please, as a way of, kind of some redemption, some kind of way of healing the wrongs I've done or the mistakes I've made in life. Whereas now I'm in a really good place. I'm doing it because I enjoy it, and I want to do it for me, and I just want to do better. I want to have more fun, and with the fun comes succeeding a bit more. And success for me, like we've spoke about, is just very different. For everyone that you look at, for anyone that's inspired by my story or my journey, there are people that I aspire to be as well, that are doing it for me. So what goes around in this instance is coming around. And I want to talk as much as possible. I spoke to you about even starting a podcast or trying to speak to people that have been through challenges in life to encourage them, whether it's triathlon or a running club or a cycling club, and doing that really hard thing, setting yourself up and committing to that challenge, whatever it is. People go and cycle Alpe d'Huez, not something I'll ever do. I'm not built for hills. But that's, for some people, that's their dream.
Yeah.
For me, my dream was never to be, the one thing I never wanted to be, an Ironman. That wasn't my goal, my vision. My goal was, can I commit to this? Can I apply myself? Can I do better? And will that help me improve my life in all areas? And it has. So for me, my Ironman journey has been a massive success, because my life is better because of it. Yes, I've made my children proud. Yes, there are people that are proud of what I've achieved. But ultimately, I did this for me. I'm not ashamed to admit I was selfish in my goal. I was selfish in my commitment to it, because I needed to do that to live a better life and be happier. That's where I'm at with it.
Sometimes we use words that indicate a slight level of an underlying peace, which is when you say the word selfish. I understand where you're coming from, but there's another way of reframing that and rewording that is rather than saying that you're selfish for it, I would ask you to think about saying I'm protective, because there's a
Yeah,
protectiveness that has to be. You're protecting the new version of you, and this new version of you, in order for it to be sustained and for it to have longevity, you need to protect that now, because this is a version of you that has evolved out of many dips and rises and falls over the years. And you're happy in your own skin. You're moving in the right direction. You're moving forward. You're resculpting your physique. You're reaching new targets. You've got new goals. You've got things to do. So being protective is a better way, possibly. Just a wee thing I want to throw in there. So don't be thinking that you're selfish whenever it's something that will actually contribute very, very positively to your future.
no, it's an unbelievable way of wording it, and I had there's something I want to share. There's a friend of mine from a child. His name is Lee Bass. Remember, I was talking about the footballer Chris Bass, the very talented footballer that I grew up with. His sister Holly was a talented sprinter. The family were just. His brother Andy is a good cyclist and was a good motocross rider. They kind of their dad was like Isle of Man footballer of the year like a few times. They're just a gifted family of people, and nice people too. That Chris and Holly and Chris and Karen, the mum and dad, and they were always kind of good at stuff. But they have a cousin called Lee Bass who was also a good footballer, and we were friends from school. But then he moved away, and he actually lives abroad in Thailand. And he said, I need to find the comment. He said, I said I felt lucky. I felt lucky to be here, to be going to Barcelona. I'd put a post out, and he said it's got nothing to do with luck. You've done the hard work. You've put the effort in. You've committed to this. It's because of you. Be proud of you. And that I'm not somebody that thinks that way of myself. I haven't been. But that was a real significant moment where I thought, you know what? He's absolutely right. It's not luck. I've got me here. And yes, I've had the incredible support of some other people. Breffney O'Donnell and Ashlyn down at O'Donnell Physiotherapy in Nice. Like, I was into them every other week, and they not only physically helped me prepare for this, they mentally got me ready for it. They kind of there's so many people, and I'm thinking I'm missing anyone on the journey of so many people have poured a little bit of themselves in to help me achieve what I want to achieve. And that's something that I wasn't expecting out of the sport. I didn't realize it existed. I thought it is a very lonely journey. I do a lot of training on my own. I do a lot of swimming, a lot of biking, a lot of running. And I find it challenging sometimes just doing it all on your own. My long training days would be a lap of the lock, which is 122k on your own. It's a long day out on a Sunday. Some incredible people that I meet through the sport. Paul McCormack, who's a physio from Lurgan, done multiple Ironmans, he's succeeded, and he's not had success at them, and he's had challenges, and he equipped me so well to be ready and prepared for so many things. Tommy Stevenson works at South Lakes, does triathlon again. Somebody that has just drilled home that nobody is sending lifeboats. Nobody's going to come and do the work for you. He from day one was, if you're doing this, it's you, buddy. It's down to you, and that has given me a massive amount of self-worth that now I can accept. I've done the work. I've done the journey, and I've done it with the support of some amazing people.
I'm just sitting reflecting here, listening to you naming more people, and I'm actually thinking to myself, if maybe you could do this at some point when you listen back to this podcast, count the amount of people that you have named in your podcast in this episode, and give yourself a point of worth for each of those, and compare where you are now. Like earlier on, whenever you had said that you were at one point very, very low and felt really worthless, for the amount of people that have contributed, that see worth in you, and that see that you are worth helping, guiding, training, coaching, hanging out with, whatever. It's a phenomenal community, and it's absolutely amazing to hear that. And thank you very much for sharing it. And I'm sure each of those people will be chuffed that they've had a wee shout out there. But we have to just keep reminding ourselves that we are lucky and that we have these people around us, and that we have positive peer groups, and we have like-minded people with really strong sense of community. There's one of the guys in our club refers to, like, they're the Tri family. There's something about that. Like, there is a sort of a sense that we're all cut from the same cloth, or we're all a cohort, or whatever the term is. But it's lovely.
There are the majority of people in the sport want you to massively succeed and excel. The majority, the large majority. But there are those that either don't like the amount you post or the amount you share, or they're fed up, but they don't unfollow you. They still follow, and they still, it would just be easier to unfollow people if you don't like what they share or what they're given. My only hope is that by being honest about triathlon, the clubs, the people, the good, the encouragement, the support, the positive effects it's having and had on my life and my family's life, that will encourage the person that is just sitting in the background at the minute on the periphery, contemplating dipping his toe in. And they don't have to do an Ironman. They can go to Portlaoise in a cold April and do a sprint. They can do tries. And Nace Tri Club, I think, do a couple of duathlons in what's the race course down there? Not Nace,
Punchestown, is it?
Punchestown. Yeah, they do a couple of the duathlons early in the year. There's something for everyone to go and do. Oliver was messaging me today about going and doing a half marathon in Omer in April, and I'm like, "Have you sent that to the right person?" And he was like, "Yep, I have." So I think there's stuff for everyone, and the majority of the clubs and the people just want to bring and attract more and more new people in. And
Yeah.
I think if you're my kind of message would be that if you're one of those guys or girls that's just, I can't swim, or I can't run, or I can't bike, everyone will be better at or weaker at something, but not doing it is far worse than trying it.
That's right.
And that's the message I probably would put across. The the thought of living life and not trying things rather than giving it a go. And it's okay to, honestly, the one thing I probably have got comfortable with, I don't mind looking a bit silly. I'm not built to wear lycra. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're the most complimentary type of clothing,
Yeah.
but it's okay. Just get on with it and have a go. And I think anyone that comes into the sport would absolutely love it, because I have. It's become a huge part of my life, and I haven't got to where I'm gonna get.
That brings me very, very nicely and seamlessly up to the next part of your journey, which is an ongoing journey. Curious to find out what's in the pipeline. Oliver's obviously already bent in your ear about Oma Half Marathon. I have to plug the local race too and speak up for it. It really is a phenomenal race here in Oma. So I would encourage you to think about that one. But with regards to triathlon, what does 2025 look like? Is there any plans made yet, or are we
Yeah,
still too early, or what are we at?
yeah. So just on the Ulma Triathlon, we're going to do. I was talking to my friend Sinead today about it, and she's pretty excited. She lives in Derry, and she's gonna give it a go as well. So I think we're definitely on for that. I'm in for a hard winter. I've started my training for next year, and it's all geared towards weight loss and strength and conditioning. Brian Fraser's been a great help and support in just reining me in a little bit and setting me to just be patient again. That's what I need. Oliver has has thought maybe at the start of coming back from Barcelona, I'd want quite a bit of time off just to maybe recover and take it easy. But that's not how I kind of function. I need my goals and strive towards them. So we're getting back into a routine. We've got an easy week next week and some evaluations the week after, and then from there we're going to keep building into the new year. We go to Mallorca in May for Oliver's training camp. And again on the 10th of May, which is the final day, is the 70.3 in Mallorca, which we thought about, but I'm doing Hamburg on the 1st of June, the full Ironman.
Brilliant.
And I'm also going to do Barcelona again. That's the two fulls, and hopefully get to as many of the local races and support the local clubs, whether it's competing in them, which would be ideal, but if not, definitely just supporting the other people that are out there racing.
Brilliant stuff. That's two epic events to look forward to next year.
Yeah,
And of course the Omaha Half Marathon.
yeah, the Omaha Half, and I was actually entered into. I got a late entry off somebody in exchange for the Dublin Marathon this year, but it was 3 weeks after Barcelona. I just wasn't ready. You know, I'd done my goal, and I was being greedy and taking the Dublin Marathon on. And I want to go. And when I'm doing in the future, hopefully marathons, I did London in 2012, and suffered another knee injury, but I completed it. I hobbled over the line. I would like to do some marathons and just more racing. Maybe get out and do some of these hills and ultras and tries. You know, you don't know where this all leads. I'm really enjoying the cycling. I'm probably now swimming was always my favourite, whereas I'm probably now more inclined to say that cycling and running are probably of an even part. I'm really enjoying the running. A lot of it's treadmill. It's fine. It's really good, and I'm doing. Oliver's built me structured sessions which allow me to do some speed work. It allows me to do some hill efforts and attempts, which gets me better equipped to running powerfully on the flats. Brian's looking after my strength and condition and work, which then is helping me be stronger physically. And we're doing lots of work on my shins and my calves to help with those issues that we've had. You know, everything is targeted towards having a successful year, and I know that at times that there could be problems or niggles, but we'll just deal with them when they come on. And I'm really looking forward to going to Hamburg and going back to Barcelona, and hopefully if the conditions are of similar to this year in terms of the swimming conditions and the biking conditions, we can go and we can, you know, really improve on what we did this year. That's the goal. It's just improvement
That's
and enjoyment.
good stuff. Anybody that wants to follow your journey then, Ian, can do so, I assume, on Instagram. Just type up One Bloke's Journey.
Yeah, that's what it's become. Yeah, it is. It's just me, just plodding on, or maybe not plodding so much sometimes, but just trying to plow on through, and just I just want to better myself, and also I think what comes with that is a better quality of life, better people around you. You know, I would have very much been the guy that was home and away at football matches, and you know, your weekends and life evolves around football and drinking. You know, and that just isn't the life I want to live. I drank the day after. I didn't have a drink from the 5th of March to the day after the Ironman, and I had a few beers the day after the Ironman with Oliver joined us for a bit before he left, and Rory Sexton, who had also done the Ironman. We've met in Mallorca. We've got on famously, and we finished quite close to each other in the Ironman, and we went for food after it together, and we had a few drinks the next day, and then me and Matthew went out at the weekend there, up to Portrush, and we had some food and went out and listened to some live music, and that's kind of, I'm happy and content with that. But kind of more focused on nice training weekends, being active and building towards a strong year next year.
So, Ian, all I want to do now is to thank you very much for sharing your journey. Looking forward to how it all pans out over the next year. I suppose you just want to give anybody a wee shout out before we go. Anybody that's been missed or anything?
Yeah, well, obviously the people I've mentioned, you know, I haven't missed, who have had incredible support, but none of this really financially would have been possible without the support of my best friend Stephen. His company JRT Marketing have backed me massively. You know, they covered my entries for Barcelona. They've covered my entries for Hamburg and Barcelona next year. They supported me with my training kit. They've helped in so many ways, and he's been the one person that no matter what's gone on in my life, he's never gone too far. You know, he's always been stood right beside me and supporting me. So I'm very lucky that his businesses are in a position to support me and sponsor me. And he's been really, really encouraging. So definitely, I suppose, a big shout out to him for his help and support this year.
That's brilliant. And the other thing that you're toying with then is the potential, possibly, for you to do a wee podcast at some point in the future.
Yeah, I keep sort of going back to it, and I've spoke to a couple of people to see if they think it's a good idea, and everyone tells me it is, but then putting it into practice is a different thing. But I think anything that we can do to encourage and inspire anyone to either get involved in this sport or our sport and activity, where they challenge themselves, and that challenge makes them stronger and improves their quality of life, I think is only a good thing. So if I could do it in the way that was the outcome, that's definitely what I'd like to look towards.
Good man, Ian. Listen, all the very best. Touch wood for an injury-free winter, and all the very best for those big events next year.
Thanks very much, and look forward to catching up, and thank you for having me on. Cheers.